all I'm going to do is go in and try to grab the areas that I want to emphasize the lighting. I'm not going to go over the whole painting like I did at the very beginning with the white, you know. I'm going to be very methodical and restrained in how I put it in there. I'll start with the most intense areas first, like the eyes, where I want to get this full effect kind of going on around them. Come in here and enhance that edge just a little bit. You can see like where the light edge meets that dark edge to gain the most extreme amount of contrast there. It really helps to pop things. These little hooks going into the eyes will bring those out a little bit more. And you know, some of this stuff, the layering, is going to be really important because the amount of white that we already have down, and oftentimes when you're working with, you know, your successive layers of and values of gray, you might lose some of the original value that the white gave you, but it's okay because right now is when come back in and put that stuff back down. So even on these little areas of the skin, I'm just going to hit little points, and pretty much dictated by what I had already done earlier. And then again, I'm not breaking away from what I had done previously with the white. I'm always kind of enhancing into that, and I keep reinforcing the original concept that we were working with originally with the white, never really deviating from it. I might accent things a little bit more. Like see right there, just a couple little highlights, just enough to pick that up. And you can, you know, you're getting a lot of interaction because if you do add these highlights, even in a well-reduced, lower application, you're still going to get the value of gray as a byproduct of shooting the white over top of your darker grays. So you can utilize that, you know, to some extent without overworking it if you're real careful. That's why I always suggest that if you start to get down towards these final phases of your painting to, you know, reduce really well, and you'll be able to get more of a controlled application. I seem to have a piece of dirt in my needle here. So, and some of the stuff, you know, I'm just going to go over lightly and, you know, pick up, and just the power of suggestion. Remember we talked about being able to make implications of something being there, or more than really what you're doing by the way you've done it. But just by simple, those little highlights right there, you know, this little stuff that I'm adding is, you know, suggesting to the viewer that there's, you know, some sort of irregular surface going on there. And all I'm really doing is putting in very nondescript little dots, not real points, but more of kind of a hazy application of it. And again, still in line with what I had originally done. Now I'll bring more focus to the chin area here, and I'll get a little tighter with the way that the highlights are applied. You can see I'm actually getting in there and almost putting in a full wet stroke on those, and you can start to see how the difference between this area in the highlights and how much down here, what the difference is. The teeth are pretty well saturated. I don't think I really need to do much more to them. I don't think I can really apply much more white because they are pretty much there when we first let off the painting before we started the grays. So I don't really feel a need there. Some of the things we can do with the white while we're at this point, if we wanted to add like some effects, like I'll add like some drool. And now that we've got all the shading and stuff done around there, because the wet surface is going to be highly reflective, it'll actually pick up light over top even the darkest of areas where you have the shadows developed, you know, like through the jawline here, the core shadows. So it helps give that type of stuff even a little bit more emphasis too. And I'm doing like a little flood stroke, just real tight little line like we talk about, almost to the point where it's going to blow the line out from the air pressure. I'm putting down so much paint. These stuff here, as I get more away from the chin, I'll become less focused with it. You can see I'm still kind of following what I had done, but there's a case where it disappears. It's going to become more random. Edges like the nose here, You're going to have a lot of the reflection coming out the eyes, real sharp edges. Anytime you have a real crisp edge, you're going to get a lot more definition from the highlight. You know, the wetter surface, the harder, more reflective the surface is, the more impact these highlights are going to have on portraiture and stuff like that in the corners of the eyes. Areas where the eyes are very wet, you'll have a lot of more application of your highlight too. So just pick up a couple of these teeth here. You know, you're getting a constant layering too. You're getting a lot of interaction of your previous grays over top of your white. And you're getting a lot of a layered look, which kind of makes it look really rich too. So it's cool to have, you know, some of the colors bleeding over in a certain controlled fashion. See the highlights here. I'm just going to go in and pick up some ridges of this stuff here and there. And if I want to, you know, going around the edges, come back in and pick up some of that stuff real subtle if you want. Emphasize, give it a little bit more contrast. But I'm just constantly going back into wherever I've done my white. The areas where the most extreme lights would be, I'll really pound the stuff on to the point where it's puddling up, you know? And then as it gets away from the main light source, it'll start to get softer. So you can see how I've changed the application from being a really strong highlight here, going down to a softer highlight as it's rolled away from the main light source. The screw is going to have quite a bit of a strong highlight on it. Alright, so I've got pretty much the highlights done in the face. The teeth are pretty good. It might come around this side a little bit. Pick up some of this stuff just a little. Because of the perspective, it's going to be quite skewed to not really see the whole tooth. So I'm just putting the, you know, the implications of the highlight there on the side. So, and I'm also going to do some of this stuff up here, but I just wanted to kind of show you guys how much, you know, of the white I actually put down. You can see I did very little to destroy all the work that we've done, and that's why I try to emphasize, again, you know, everything is always built off that foundation of the white, constantly working inside that area, and, you know, not overworking your artwork. It's a very tough discipline to get to the point with your initial white to feel, you know, I'm done here, you know, this is where I need to stop, this is when I can start going into the next colors, and knowing each time when you're working when to stop with that next color. You know, it just takes years of practice and just knowing, especially when you're developing these images inside your head, you know, when should I stop? When do I go on to the next color? And then when you're on to that next color, you know, have I gone too far over what I've previously done? There's a whole lot of flip-flopping and insecurity along the way of maturing as an artist who's creating from inside himself. So don't be discouraged about the things that we've tried to achieve here if you feel like you fell short. It's just a part of the learning curve. So, you know, like you see now, I just put very little white on. I mean, it probably looks like I did absolutely nothing. But if you took a photograph of where I started before I did the white, you would see a considerable difference. But because I put such a little bit on, it doesn't look like I did a whole lot. So let's get you guys moving along, and let's spend the rest of the time here working with you.